Hello friends, today I have an appointment with the Emperor Commodus, who is now living at Capitoline Museum in Rome. Just a moment, I will go there and meet him at his residence. Hello Emperor Commodus. What an honor to meet you in this magnificent museum. How are you?
Well, I could be better. It's a bit boring to spend the time here with nothing to do, and no enemy to kill, but I don't complain.
I see you're wearing an unusual costume. It looks like the skin of a lion. Getting ready for a Saturnalia party?
You ignorant man. I'm dressed like Hercules, the son of Jupiter. Indeed, I am the son of Hercules. My power comes directly from him and is not a gift from the Senate. I draw my strength and courage from Hercules, Jupiter's son, and I share my faith with the people and soldiers of Rome.
I apologize, Your Majesty. Well, I'm here to interview you. Would you like to answer some questions?
Oh yes, with pleasure.
First of all, can you give us some information about yourself and your family?
I was born on August 31, 161 in Lanuvium, near Rome, and died on December 31, 192. I was a Roman emperor, and ruled from 177 to 192. My parents were the Emperor Marcus Aurelius, and Faustina the Younger, the youngest daughter of Emperor Antoninus Pius. My father decided I had to be his co-emperor, even before his death. In fact, on October 12, 166, I was made Caesar. I was only 16 years old, and I reigned with him for 3 years. Unfortunately, he died in 180 killed by the Antonine Plague.
So, you became a full-fledged emperor at the age of 19. Isn't that unusual? I know that before Marcus Aurelius, the title of emperor was not hereditary, since the emperors chose as their heir a person who had the qualities to succeed them. At least this was the tradition of the Antonine emperors. Then, after about 80 years of adoptive emperors, from Nerva, 96 AD, to Marcus Aurelius, 180 AD, your father Marcus Aurelius decided to abandon the adoption system and return to the transmission of power by direct parental bond, or from father to son, as it had been with the Flavian dynasty.
Yes, it's true, but you forget that the previous emperors, Augustus for instance, had no male descendants, and so they were obliged to nominate a successor that they had previously adopted. However, I already had a certain experience of command. Don't forget that when I still was an adolescent my father had entrusted me with important tasks. In fact, I accompanied him during the Marcomannic Wars in 172 and on a tour of the eastern provinces in 176. Yet, my father was aware of my young age, and he surrounded me with his friends who were members of the Concilium Principis. They were the so-called Marcus's friends. The most distinguished ones were Tiberius Claudius Pompeianus, a capable general and husband of Marcus's daughter Lucilla, and then his other son-in-law Lucius Antistus Burrus, to whom Marcus Aurelius had given Vibia Aurelia Sabina in marriage. And also my own father-in-law Gaius Bruttius Praesens, father of Crispina, my wife. Members of this support team were also some other brave generals of the time, such as Publius Helvius Pertinax and Marcus Didius Julianus. These last two generals later became emperors after my killing.
Historians have described you as a violent murderer whose strategy to preserve power consisted in killing enemies, sometimes for very flimsy reasons. All it took was one suspicious attitude, or the fact they were becoming too powerful and rich.
This is just stupid gossip. As you know, almost all the historians were senators, and, therefore, their vision was biased. They hated me for limiting the Senate power, those lazy, useless toga-wearing characters. Don't even believe to what Cassius Dio, my most famous biographer, says about me. He pretends to be a reliable witness, because he was my contemporary, and frequented the imperial domus during the reign of Marcus Aurelius. But still he was a senator. He even participated in the Senate meeting, where it was decided to erase my memory, and they elected Pertinax as my successor.
Okay, let's not believe what your enemies say. Now, just tell me what the positive aspects of your reign were.
Well, first of all, my reign was one of the most peaceful in the history of the Roman Empire. Do you know that after my father's death, I remained with the Danube armies for only a short time, before negotiating a peace treaty with the Danuban tribes? I then returned to Rome and celebrated a triumph for the conclusion of the wars on October 22, 180. Obviously, my detractors claim that it was my laziness and cowardice to convince me to put an end to the Marcomannic Wars, because I secretly missed the leisured life I could lead in Rome. They say this is the reason why I made peace with the Quadi, Marcomanni, and other Germanic tribes. They forget I stayed on the Danube front for more than 6 months, at least until the autumn of 180 AD, during which time I was able to successfully complete several military operations. They also forget that the Antonine Plague continued to rage even in the army and, because of the plague, making new recruits was certainly not easy.
I know the years of your reign were marked by a terrible plague.
Yes, the Antonine Plague, which began in 166 AD and lasted 20 years in Italy, and in the provinces, caused the death of at least 2 million people, and the famous Dr. Claudius Galen himself was powerless in the face of the spread of the terrible disease. The long plague also led to a significant economic worsening, due to the difficulty of carrying on trade and commercial traffic.
Historians also describe you as a rather uncultured person, who favored physical activities and sports, to the point that you even went into the arena to show off as a gladiator. It is also said that you were born from your mother Faustina's relationship with a gladiator.
Historians lie as usual. Marcus Aurelius took care to give me the best education possible. I had the best mentors of the time, who came from all the provinces of the empire. Onesicrates taught me Greek. Antistius Capella was my Latin mentor, and Titus Ius Sanctus was my teacher of rhetoric. I was a diligent pupil and appreciated their teaching. My father also encouraged me to practice sports, such as athletics, boxing, and fighting, and often quoted Juvenal's saying, "Mens sana in corpore sano." As for the rumor that I was not the son of Marcus Aurelius, I will only say that historians have a fantastic imagination. They claim that my mother Faustina once saw a parade of gladiators, and immediately fell in love with one of them. My father was mad with jealousy, and ordered her lover to be killed. Once again, it's all slander. My mother was a loving and devoted wife all her life.
How did you appreciate the help received by your support team, that is the group of counselors your father decided to put beside you?
They were such a bore. It is true that I was very young when I succeeded my father to the throne, but after a few years, I wanted to make my own decisions. However, according to my father's plans, they were to be my advisors, until I reached the right political maturity. I had my first arguments with them, when I decided to sign a peace treaty with the Quadi, the Marcomanni, and the other Germanic tribes, and to return to Rome. They didn't realize that the war cost too much, and the state coffers were already empty. I was also afraid that in Rome they were plotting against me, when I was miles away from the center of power.
Excuse me, if I say that historians describe you as a mentally ill person, with paranoid symptoms.
Mine was not paranoia. During my reign, I had to deal with 3 conspiracies, at least.
Let's start with the first one. Can you tell us what happened? Is that true that your sister Lucilla was involved?
Unfortunately, it's true. How could I trust the senators if even my sister plotted with them against her brother? Aeneia Aurelia Galeria Lucilla was a powerful matron. She had married the Emperor Lucius Verus, and for this, she obtained the title of Augusta. After the death of her first husband, she married Tiberius Claudius Pompeianus. Both were certainly not love marriages, as they were dictated by political reasons. Lucilla hoped to become empress, if our father had designated Pompeianus as her successor. Which did not happen because, as you know, he appointed me as his heir to the throne. She had always been a first lady in the imperial court, but now she had become a second-rate figure, and she could not accept this situation. She wanted power so much that she decided to gather all my enemies to kill me. But my sister's ambition was not the only reason for the plot. I had appointed Sextus Tigidius Perennis as Praetorian prefect, to limit the power of Publius Terratinius Paternus, who was a friend of the senators. As a result, the senators feared that I was diminishing their political relevance to increase my powers. Anyway, this attempt at killing my person was a failure, because of my enemy's stupidity. In 182 AD, Quintianus, the designated assassin, was waiting for me in the tunnel that connected the Ludus Magnus, which was the gladiators' gymnasium, to the Colosseum. Quintianus took out his dagger and attacked me, but before striking, he said, "The Senate sends you this dagger." Of course, my guards captured him, and I was saved. You can imagine my reaction. I sentenced the conspirators to death, e.g. Paternus Pompeianus Quintianus, Ammidius Quadratus, and others, and I exiled Lucilla to Capri, but after a while, I ordered her to be killed. What else did you expect from me? Naturally, after this sad event, my hatred toward senators could only grow.
And now, let's go to the second conspiracy.
Yes. After the conspiracy of 182, Sextus Tigidius Perennis was the only Praetorian prefect, and became the protagonist of the political scene by supporting me in my government. Actually, he was the most powerful and influential man in Rome until 185.
Don't tell me, he fell from grace too.
Unfortunately, he did. Herodian, one of my historians, says that the Praetorian prefect was so greedy for power, that he planned my death to give the imperial throne to his son. Even in this case, the conspirators were stupid enough to have their plot discovered. Just imagine the scene. I was sitting on the imperial throne in the stadium of Domitian, to watch the champions participate in the sacred competition in honor of Capitoline Jupiter. Before the start of the show, a man dressed as a philosopher, half naked, and holding a stick and a bag in his hand, with a gesture of his hand, ordered the audience to be silent and said,
"Commodus, this is not the time to celebrate, participate in banquets and shows. Over your head hangs the sword of Perennis, and if you are not careful, you will die very soon. He and his sons are gathering men and money to fight you. If you don't watch out for danger, you're lost."
I was stunned. Perennis ordered that man to be arrested and thrown into the fire as a slanderer. Sometime later, some Illyrian soldiers came to me and showed the coins that Perennis's son had minted with his effigy. This was the irrefutable evidence of the conspiracy against me. But I was smarter than my enemies thought. I came up with a counter-plan. I recalled a military contingent from Brittany to Italy to defend my safety. Then I declared Perennis a public enemy, and ordered the soldiers to tear him to pieces. In addition to Perennis, his wife, sister and 2 children were also tortured and murdered. Afterwards, I sent some messengers to Illyria, with a letter inviting the son of Perennis to leave immediately for Rome. He thought that this was part of his father's plan to kill me, and so he fell into the trap.
Well, certainly yours wasn't paranoia, and you were right to be wary. As always happens with powerful men, you could never be sure of the honesty and loyalty of your collaborators.
Even after these betrayals, I remained a man who needed to surround himself with friends. The last person I considered a true and faithful companion was Cleander. Cleander, originally from Phrygia, a region of Anatolia, was brought to Rome as a slave, and was later made libertus by Marcus Aurelius. He became my own cubiculari, that is, the man who took care of my bedroom, and I even let him marry my concubine Damastratia. After the death of Perennis, Cleander took his place, and even became Praetorian Prefectus, in the second half of 189 AD. Cleander began to give and sell senatorial dignities and other privileges. Actually, he gave to me and my concubines much of the wealth he acquired, and he spent much more on the construction of houses and baths, and other money he spent on useful works. But he became very powerful, and, consequently, made many enemies. Cleander's decline was linked to the famine that in 189 AD hit Rome, and which was also made more serious by the second wave of the Antonine plague. The Roman people accused Cleander of having purchased and hidden large quantities of grain to speculate on the price. They marched against the Villa dei Quintili, where Commodus was at the time, asking for Cleander's head. When I learned of the riot, I ordered Cleander and his sons to be killed. It was a very painful but necessary decision. Cleander was captured and beheaded, and his head was stuck on the tip of a long spear, and exhibited to the people just as they wanted. Then the revolt was ended.
Let's move to the third conspiracy. Was it the final one?
This was the most terrible and definitive betrayal. The traitors were the three people I trusted blindly: Marcia, my favorite concubine; Eclectus, my cubiculari; and Quintus Aemilius Letus, the praetorium prefectus. Before the Saturnalia celebrations, I informed Marcia that, on that day, I would appear to the Roman people starting from the gladiator barracks, and wearing gladiator armor, instead of the august purple robe. Marcia was shocked by my decision, and begged me to change my mind, because she considered this behavior dishonorable. You know how proud I was of my courage and skill as a fighter, and I couldn't understand her reaction. I thought she lacked sensitivity. Eclectus and Quintus Aemilius Letus had the same reaction. So, I decided to kill them all. The three became suspicious of my intentions and, with the support of the Senate, they decided to kill me on the last day of the year, while the people were busy with celebrations. They poisoned my meal, but I was stronger than that, and I didn't die. Then they bribed Narcissus, a young and strong athlete, with the promise of a large sum of money, and he strangled me on the night of December 31st, 192. I was 31 years old, had reigned for 12 years, 9 months and 14 days, and, with me, the Antonine dynasty became extinct.
Thank you, Emperor Commodus, for narrating your life story with such honesty and so many details.
It has been a pleasure.